We had Tyler Dank and the team. They went like full Apple WWDC.
Welcome to the first ever Beehive winter release event.
If they released any of these things individually, it would be not a news story whatsoever. I wasn't underwhelmed, but I was just kind of like, okay, that's fine.
You were whelmed?
I was whelmed. I was like, oh, okay.
I didn't realize Beehive didn't have these features. Beehive had a really good run, and the last couple of months have not been good. There is an expiry date on them delivering on the promises they've made.
All right, Louis, so it's been a couple of busy days for updates in the newsletter world. We had some big news out of Beehive, obviously. You also had some of your own news, and we had something from Patreon that I think all of these kind of related. I would say the Patreon and Beehive updates certainly, focusing more on the creator economy. So I want to get into those a little bit. I think the first one we can start out with is Patreon, right? So the big change they had there is they announced something called Quips, which we don't have to debate how stupid of a name it is. I think we all agree it's a stupid name. But basically, they're trying to rip off Substack, which started Notes, which Substack ripped off Twitter, which is Twitter, right? So basically, Patreon is now trying to make something that is, like Twitter, kind of a social feed. What are your immediate thoughts on that?
I don't know. I didn't think too much about the social feed angle of it. Like, obviously that's important, but what stood out to me was like just how heavily they're going in on the newsletter branding. Like they went out and they got a bunch of people who are on Substack to switch over and use Patreon's tool. So presumably some kind of like payment or something like promotion guarantee happening behind the scenes.
So basically what Substack used to do.
Well, yeah, what they still do, right? Like this is the whole game is like people are going from Substack to Beehive, Beehive back to Substack, Substack to Patreon now. Those are the three that are doing it.
Do you know anybody on Patreon writing a newsletter? I don't know anybody.
I just saw one the other day. So I was reading this, an announcement from somebody who is, I know a bunch of people who are on Patreon, but I didn't know anyone who was running a newsletter specifically.
Well, you're looking at their feet on Patreon.
That's my OnlyFans. It's very, very different stuff. Patreon is for the clean stuff. Yeah, so there's a newsletter called Men Yell at Me, which was pretty big on Substack. I don't think it was like the top 10.
Are those two separate words? Man yell at me or men yell?
No, men yell at me.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Men are yelling at me.
Got it.
And there's a pretty big Substack for them to get. Like, it's not like they got the free press or anything, but it's a decent name. It's a big one, sort of like where they're setting that milestone. And really interestingly for me is like what Substack has been able to do that newsletters haven't really been able to do is attractive, young, normal people to writing and to sort of like the written content space, right? Which we suck at in the newsletter space in general, I think.
Yeah.
And who is really, really good at that is Patreon, right? Everybody who has a podcast, who's been in the content game for like the last 10, 15 years on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they have patrons. Patron is a verb, not a verb. Patron's like a pronoun like Substack, right? Like you have a Substack, you have a patron.
Yeah.
You don't go like, oh, come and join my community. It's no, come join the paid patron, right? Become a subscriber on Patreon. So I think that's a really big threat for Substack. And I think Patreon obviously saw that Substack was coming with their social features to potentially eat their lunch and thought, okay, well, we need to move quickly while we still have the bigger network, while we still have creators who are embedded in with us, who are making money with us, because you're not going to leave what's already working necessarily, right? And if they can switch on those social features and the newsletter features pretty quickly, they go from being somewhere that people are leaving for Substack to having so many people in that network that you almost start to pull people in from Substack, right? Which I'm assuming is the hope.
Yeah, but I guess I don't know if it's a problem with Quips or what they're trying to do, but do you think Patreon, and to be honest, like I don't use Patreon. I think maybe I subscribed to one a while ago, but do you think that Quips could actually drive traffic for these newsletters or for other, for maybe it's for video or whatever it is, but like for other users? So I guess my thought is like, is this like a true social feed, which is what I think Substack is trying to do, and they're doing like a pretty good job of it, right? That we seen people that have a lot of organic growth. There's certainly problems with the organic growth that they're giving, but I think it's working for some people. Or do you see this Patreon as being kind of like a you might also like on Amazon, right? So like the like other shoppers are looking at this. It kind of feels like that to me. I'm just curious. Like I don't think are people on Patreon, are you trained, I guess, when you're going there, don't you just want to go see the person or the creator that you're paying for? Are you going to want to go into this feed and be like, hey, let me look at all these other people? I just don't know if there's like the value in it. In which case, why wouldn't you just stay on Substack where there is like this big organic reach that you could tap into?
Yeah, I don't know. I think one thing that stands out to me about the difference between Patreon and Substack is Substack, a lot of people on there are not particularly successful, do not have particularly large audiences necessarily off Substack, and they are actually building their entire audience on Substack, or at least a much bigger audience than they have elsewhere. Patreon is really, really interesting in that not only like do you have to have a big audience elsewhere to bring people into Patreon, like there hasn't really been any sort of like audience growth functionality, but also even like the content delivery has not really been on Patreon. Like I subscribe to a bunch of like podcasts and stuff like that on Patreon, and I use the app very rarely because podcast feed that is in my podcast player. I have the YouTube where I know that then I can go through to like even the video stuff, like it's unlisted videos that are on YouTube, basically, that you go and watch on YouTube because it's a better watching experience, right? I don't know. I think the newsletter functionality and the thing that Patreon does really well is they have the chats, right? They have like the live streams and stuff, and they have like this chat group that in some cases are pretty active.
Yeah.
So that is useful, and I think, but just because of how
that's in a silo though, right? It's like it's not really discoverability.
No, it isn't. But you do have people going in there, and the thing that Patreon has at Substack doesn't have quite yet is it just has huge names, and these are all huge names that come from the content space who are super used to collaborating, right?
Yeah.
And if you have all of these podcast hosts, like basically every big podcast is doing something with most of them are doing something with Patreon.
Yeah.
And so if they build out a team who is nimble enough to take advantage of that and to go, hey, you know how you're doing like cross promoting each other's shows, you should cross promote each other's paid shows to each other and so on. I think they can do that, but it's going to be hard. Like I agree with you that muscle of like creating content specifically on Patreon to be consumed on Patreon by those big creators isn't there.
Yeah.
And getting them to change stuff is hard.
Yeah. And it's like, how many places can we repurpose our content, people? But I want to get into Beehive because I think that's probably the bigger story here. And it also looks like maybe what Beehive announced at their big winter event is kind of a reaction to what Substack and Patreon are doing, or at least they're trying to move into their territory. So yeah, we had Tyler Dank and the team. They went like full Apple WWDC and rented out what looked like a very expensive studio to do this winter release event. So I'm just going to list off some of what Beehive announced. We got digital products, podcasts, link in bio, dynamic content, ad network, which I think already existed, AI web builder, which I think already existed, web analytics, templates, automations already existed, and paid subscriptions, which I think already existed. But anyways, I'm curious what your thoughts are. I'm just gonna say, like, my general thought in the summary that I had was, if they released any of these things individually, it would be a not a news story whatsoever. Maybe because they announced so many, it's a news story, but I don't know. I wasn't underwhelmed, but I was just kind of like, okay, that's fine, right? I'm curious what
you were whelmed.
Yeah, I was whelmed. I was like, oh, okay, like that's nice, right? Nothing like got me super excited. I could see why I could get other people excited, right? That are potentially in the creator space who want to sling PDFs or something. But what are your immediate thoughts?
I guess a quick question for you. Like, obviously, you said you weren't like super overwhelmed. You weren't necessarily underwhelmed. Do you think the amount of sort of like hype that they did around this sort of contributed to you being maybe not quite as excited as you maybe otherwise would have been? Like if they just dropped this out of nowhere, would you have been a lot more like, wow? Because I personally, like, I was like, they must be about to do something really cool, like that they're spending all that time doing this. And then I didn't get to watch the thing. I was in a call, but I sort of saw the PDF they shared afterwards. And
they must have watched so much Apple or like product announcement. They all were doing, the hand things. Like I forget what that's called, like the power hand moves. It was really impressive. They probably spent more money on that training. To answer your question, if they drop this out of the blue, right? I think they ship something. Their whole thing is like we ship every Tuesday, right? So if they shipped any of these things, it would just be like another email in my inbox where I'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe the paid products. It's interesting for, now you can do like a consulting product, right? You don't have to go on like Gumroad or something like that to do it. So I think it's cool. As far as like the hype machine, I think I've just kind of gotten hype blind to Tyler Dank, right? Like it's just his MO, and like I think it's cool. I think it's generally good for the space. Like somebody's getting excited about newsletters, like that's awesome. I kind of like his move the other day where I think he put like he was the chief product officer of Kit or something. Like I don't know. That stuff is, I'm sure it pisses people off, but I just think it's kind of funny. It's like fun internet culture. But I think I just kind of become used to them doing like a really good job of content marketing and marketing themselves. And so I wasn't surprised that it potentially didn't live up to the hype because they're a hype machine.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's for sure. What were your thoughts?
I was wondering whether to. No, I'll share it. So it's funny. No, I'm not going to do it. Let's talk about the launch stuff. What stood out to me, I guess, of the features and the stuff that they launched was, and this is something that I talked to a bunch of people about who aren't necessarily on Beehive.
Yep.
But were potentially considering it, and like they were some people I know who are on other platforms were like, I'm going to watch this because this seems like something. It's going to be huge. This guy seems to know newsletters. Like, I should watch this because I'm probably going to have to switch to this platform. And then what a bunch of people told me in like groups and stuff was, and it was kind of the same impression that I had, was like, I didn't realize Beehive didn't have these features. It was like, why, automations, like better automations, but still not as good as other ESPs, right? Like, they don't have paid products. Like a lot of platforms have paid products. Analytics, okay. Well, yeah, web platforms kind of got to have like some analytics built in. What was else there? Like the Linktree thing. Okay, everyone's got a Linktree. That's like the first thing you do because it's the easiest.
Oh yeah, link in bio. Yeah.
Yeah. Link in bio thing. Yeah.
I agree. It's kind of funny. It's like I get it. Coming from a like true kind of consulting world, when you build out your PowerPoints, you want to have like, kind of fill them out, and you want to have like the same amount of, product features and stuff. And it feels like they kind of filled in some blanks there with, like automations. It's to your point, it's almost calling out like our automations weren't great before, but like now they're getting a little bit better. It's like, oh,
which is, I think, I was trying to figure out like in what world that was what they did was a smart decision. And I think the background that is useful, I don't say this as someone who's a detractor or like a competitor of Beehive, but I think it's you need to sort of understand this to analyze the situation, is Beehive had a really good run and the last couple of months have not been good, right? They've lost some really interesting people from the team, some on purpose, some not on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They have not started, like they used to always post their growth charts. There's a reason that they are not posting what their MRR like growth rate has been recently, right? It's not where they need to be. And you sort of made that joke about Tyler's putting himself as the head of product on Kit. I don't know, I can't say every, but a lot of his sort of like more brutal posts about competitors are very coincidentally timed at the same time as I see that somebody really big has left Beehive to go to either Substack or to an enterprise ESP or to Kit or to somewhere, right? And they're not all going in one direction, they're going in different places, but they're going because Beehive's been around now 4 years, 3-4 years, and there is an expiry date on them delivering on the promises they've made. And that's where I think we need that light to understand like why they shipped or like announce the features that they announce because they aren't all built yet, right? It's sort of like staking the intent, like reminding you that that's what they want to do. Is like for the automations, is like, yes, we know you want these automations that other platforms have, and we don't yet. We're doing it. Podcasts, we know that you prefer Substack because they have the inbuilt free podcast tool, and we don't. So we're building it. And all those different things, I think, products, right? Kajabi, Kit, MailerLite, there's a bunch have this product feature that they don't have. So they're sort of, I think, playing catch up mode there a little bit and trying to do it to like the different segments and being like, hey, everyone who is like not using Beehive or has left us to different places, we're trying to build those features out for you. And for me, that's where the challenge, I think, is that they're going to have. And I think the bet that they were making when they started thinking about Beehive 4 or 5 years ago was a smart one and made sense then, which is that if you want to run a creator business that does all these things, you need a bunch of different tools, and tying all these tools together, if you're not a developer or you don't have a big budget for developers, is really expensive.
Yep.
We should build the all-in-one platform. That's what it needs. Then AI came along. AI is making it really easy now to integrate all those things, and also for each of those things to be exponentially better and deeper at what they're doing. And it also makes it way harder to compete for new customers. On the one hand, like Beehive is going to get a bunch of people who have not started newsletters, who are not serious yet, to come and use Beehive because they announced that they have all these different features, and packaged together, they're quite affordable, and it seems like a good place to start. Is someone who already runs a podcast, a successful podcast, going to move to Beehive because they have the podcast feature? No, because the podcast feature is an inch deep and a mile wide, right? Like it doesn't do anything that a serious podcaster needs. Same with the website. Beehive creators, the successful ones, are not using the website. Same with the analytics. It's nowhere near as good, right? Like they are really good at having a lot of stuff on the surface, but it doesn't do what they need. And the more and more that they're adding in means that they're going to have to build out the depth in all of these different things, right? They're competing. I was trying to put together who they were competing with, right? Right now, they're competing with Kit, Substack, Patreon, Sparkloop, Typeform, Webflow, WordPress, Wix, Transistor FM, a bunch of different, like some very small, but some very big companies. And I think that in a world where I think that it's really, really difficult to make the product good and do that. It's really difficult to bring in customers who want to pay a lot of money and do that because you don't have the product depth. You only have the breadth that sort of beginners want. But the real reason I think that's a mistake is I look at what other ESPs are doing and other newsletter platforms. I think good examples of this, like Customer.io, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, and Kit. Kit's probably the closest on the creator side. And what they're essentially doing is the absolute opposite of Beehive and saying, hey, we're not building out all these different features. We're going to make it really, really easy to integrate with us. If you use the podcast tool that everyone uses, we're going to make it easy to integrate with us. You use the CRM that everyone uses, integrate with us. The community tool that everyone uses will make it easy to integrate with us. The email platform that everyone uses. And the reason that I think that's so smart strategically compared to what Beehive's doing is that when Beehive announced their Linktree competitor, their link in bio competitor, they're going to get a few small customers joining because of that feature. But what they've done is basically shut off the alleyway to have like a deep integration and like partnership, sending customers each way with Linktree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Podcast stuff, again, they've just shut off the door with a bunch of podcasting tools in the industry. And they're sort of building a little closed garden where they're making everyone their competitor, where they probably should. If it were me, I would want to be making everyone my pot.
That's a fair point, right? Like it would have been really interesting. We use Transistor FM if they went out and partnered with them, because it's a brilliant idea to be like, hey, we're going to try to get all these people on Beehive to go and build out a podcast, and maybe like we'll help them with like some studio or like, do something like that. And then Transistor FM is going to say, hey, here's all of our biggest podcasters that are using the platform. Let's make an integration so that it's super easy for them to spin up newsletters and let us make introductions to like the top 20 people on our platform. I agree. I think everything you said is spot on. It's very much, well, let me play devil's advocate. I think the positive is if it can help somebody like, the next MarketBeat or the next Milk Road or somebody like that, kind of who's really good at writing and has this like expert insight, but maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to build this out, 5 years ago because the tools didn't exist. If they can kind of speed run this process and make a really awesome newsletter, like a killer media product, I think that's amazing because they can use Beehive as kind of a one-stop shop. Obviously, they can do a lot of it on Substack, they can do it elsewhere, but I think Beehive, this kind of cements them as that place to start doing that. Where I agree with you is that, at some point when they hit scale, they're going to have to go out and yes, they're going to have to start building their own tools. Like these things aren't going to work. I even see it with a lot of my clients, right? It's like Beehive has like really good stuff to start. And then you start like poking around and digging deeper and you have these very specific use cases and you're like, oh, this is not in depth enough. I need like the person who is the Beehive of, Linktree or LinkedIn bios, right? Or who is the Beehive of, podcasting, right? Transistor FM. It's like they've thought of all those features. And like, I think a great example is, why am I blanking on it? Who are the guys who created the platform so you can do like all of your sales? Why am I blanking? Sponsy, right? So like,
Yeah.
right, like Beehive released something like Sponsy where you can, manage your ad inventory, but it's like very high level and I think it works. And like Sponsy has thought of everything. Like they are shipping product like crazy. I actually thought it was at the beginning, I was like, oh, Sponsy doesn't have a chance compared to Beehive. But Beehive, to your point, has just gone kind of like, very surface level. And Sponsy is just thinking about everything. Like they're constantly shipping product. Every time you go to them and say like, hey guys, I would love this because of XYZ reason. Like they're going and taking back to their engineers. And I think that's what, you need to be doing if you're shipping this kind of stuff. Like, and I would have loved to just like call me a, an email purist, but I would have loved to just see Beehive be like, hey, we did this thing to help with deliverability, or like we want to help you get into inboxes. Like that's what I look at. That's how I judge an ESP, right? It's like, do my emails get in inboxes, and do I have decent enough data to see what's going on? Like I would have loved more stuff like that. But
yeah, it's interesting to see them double down at where I thought they were going. And so what I thought they were going to announce, the storefront. Obviously they absolutely had to have that. That's like every newsletter platform needs the ability.
You're
to
talking
sell
about
digital products.
to be like selling PDFs, selling
PDFs,
courses,
coaching, all this, anything you want, right? Like just having that basic functionality built in is like, it's something that anyone who's starting to make money online is going to need pretty much. So you absolutely have to have it.
I will give them credit. I think that's a big jump, but I think to your point before, that's probably something that I think if you were looking at Beehive, you would kind of assume that it already existed, right? Because they already like kind of have the functionality, built in with their ad network and stuff. So it's like they could have just expanded it to that, which they ended up doing. So it is a little weird that they didn't have that yet, almost.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to them, they've only been around for a couple of years, so it's like I get why they haven't managed to build everything out yet, but like that, all that. So I thought they were going to launch that, and then I thought where they were going to go was something to do with community. I thought that was the obvious place that they should have gone.
What do you mean by
because
that?
it's something
like you're talking like Substack notes style?
Not necessarily social network style. I'm talking more like a school or a circle, if you know those platforms, like a place where you can have your own private community, right? Like a big problem with email is that you just don't have analytics on it, and people don't like, reading stuff in the inbox and all this stuff we've discussed before. And I thought they were going to present their vision of how, like, Substack has the app, which is crushing it. Patreon has its app, also going to crush it the same way because it's a good reading experience. What I was hoping that Beehive would do would be like, which is something they don't ever do, to be fair, would be for them to be like the first ones to go, okay, we're not just gonna like copy what other people are doing, but we're actually gonna invent something, and we're gonna present like our vision for how people will consume like written creator content independently in a smart way. Whether that was gonna be like an iOS app that was like somehow cleverly branded for the creators, or whether it was gonna be, I don't know what it would have been, a community, but I thought they were gonna take a stab at that, because that I think is the thing that would crush it. But
I think so. I think there is a play that, I mean, that's the, I understand why they're not doing it, but just helping with.
I mean, they're not doing it because no one else has done it. I mean, let's be real for a second. The irony of them saying that they like, Beehive is very, very good at taking things that other people have done marketing it well and figuring out what is the minimum amount they need to integrate to say that they have that product, and then claiming they did it first, right? And
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg has made a career off of that. You know, he's worth like $50 billion.
And it's smart. It's they don't. But I was saying this like to someone who asked me like how like concerned was I that people like that Beehive would like beat Sparkloop or do something that made us irrelevant, right? And I was like, look, Beehive are amazing at the how, right? They are super innovative at how they bring products to market, but they have zero like creativity around what they do. They only do stuff that's proven somewhere else. They didn't invent referral programs. The Skim was doing it way before them. We invented paid recommendations. We in Substack invented free recommendations. We invented magic links. Every single feature they have, someone else came up with, and they are really good at putting it together and doing it the smart way. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's like the important thing in business, right? It doesn't matter who comes up with it first. It's who, gets it to market well. So that's not in any sense like a diss of them, but it's the case that like they are not inventing new stuff, and I think they are going to have to if they want to get ahead of Substack, who is inventing new stuff all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically creating the newsletter, I guess, creator economy kind of in a box, right? I think is the goal, but there's, I think it really just goes back to it's great for beginners, but I would imagine, to your point, like they make a whole lot more money off of people who have much more massive newsletters and much more scale, right? So maybe focusing on them would have made more sense.
I thought that's where they'd go. I thought they would see like Sail Through and all these huge companies. You saw Customer.io. Have you come across Customer.io?
Yeah.
They just crossed $100 million in revenue. So they're 3 times the size of Beehive.
Mm-hmm.
They're not that much. Actually, no, that's not true. They are very old. They've been around for a long time, but they only started taking off recently. They only have something like 5,000 customers for $100 million in annual revenue. It doesn't take a lot when you're at that size. And I love our enterprise ESP partners at Sparkloop. I love them truly, but if I were choosing someone to compete with in the email space, it would definitely be up there. It wouldn't be the MailerLites and the Kits and the Substacks of the world who have like very energetic, smart people working, like who are passionate about it, right?
Right.
Like Sail Through has been like handed around like something horrible at a party for like years now. Still has smart people working there, but like they're not founders, right? They don't care about it as much as these other companies.
Before we switch topics, I just want to share. This is my favorite tweet about this. So Matt Paulson from MarketBeat, who hopefully we should definitely have him on soon. I saw he wants to do he's doing a podcast tour, so maybe we can grab him. But here's what he said about the Beehive updates. I'm not sure that building another PDF checkout service is the move. Distribution is what matters. Beehive should focus on adding more distribution channels, SMS and web push. And I think you said SMS. That was your prediction of it when we were talking. And I agree. I think that would have been such a powerful move to kind of like, again, I think it just kind of, it's not inventing anything. SMS obviously exists, but I think it would have differentiated it in a major way from what Substack is doing and some of these other guys are doing. Like Klaviyo and, a lot of these other ESPs do SMS, right? But I think they really look at it from an e-commerce perspective, right? And it's still a fairly cost prohibitive sort of thing. But if Beehive was able to innovate on it and figure it out how to make it cheaper, and it actually made sense to go ahead and send, a newsletter or a link to a newsletter, I think that would have been really awesome. I mean, that's something like I've been obsessed with and tried to figure out many times over the years is like, you hear the stats, what like 95% of text messages get opened or something. It's like, if you could crack that, I mean, it's a pretty amazing opportunity, but yeah, alas, that did not happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see something like that. I don't know if it's SMS. Like, obviously, Matt's talking about what makes money for newsletters like his,
right? Which is very like e-commerce heavy. Like he wants to blast you and say like, hey, here's the latest AI stock that you need to buy, right? So like he's already doing that sort of stuff.
The problem with Matt's newsletter and like what he wants is he has the kind of newsletter that makes money. It is not a sexy newsletter that Beehive wants to put front and center of their creator economy focused like marketing message, right?
That's right.
They are they are the ugly, like the ugly son who makes all the money, right? It's not
Yeah.
it's not like the shiny, fancy TikTok girlies dancing, right? Which is who they sort of like. That's what the marketing is about. So I also think that they would have trouble with the kind of customers to a certain extent that Beehive has, which is, I think, not really a dig on Beehive, but it's more just the way that they started, where they were ridiculously cheap for a long time. Now they're one of the most expensive options, but they were very, very cheap for a long time, which meant they ended up with a lot of people who are maybe on the sort of, let's say, the gray area of like how they are, like how morality of like what emails they send and how they do it and everything.
Mhm.
And that's not, again, it's not something about Beehive that's inherently bad. It's the pricing that led them to that place and their decision not to necessarily move those people off. But if you give all those people access to SMS sending through your platform, that's dangerous. Like I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. I'd much rather have an integration with Twilio or something to do that.
But I think that just speaks to, again, like they probably should focus on the enterprise stuff. And I've been saying this about Beehive for a while, is like, give some of this access to people who you know or trusted, right? These, I don't know, top 5,000 newsletters, top 10,000 newsletters, whatever it is. And also, like, I think there's an opportunity there to like open up a separate ad network for these people, right? Versus having the ad network for everyone. But obviously that's, that's not their choice. Like they want to kind of lean into like helping, empowering the creator, blah, blah, blah. Like, it is what it is. That's key right now. The creator economy is cool. Like, sending enterprise newsletters, is not. But
I wonder how much of that is like the handcuffs of the Series B, the fundraise. Like your investors and you personally, as a founder, are not going to come out super well with. It sounds stupid, but like $100 million is now not an option, really. Like you can't be customer, you can't be the size of Sailthrough or twice the size of Sailthrough. You have to be MailChimp sized effectively to come out of this okay. Like we saw with Substack, like we talked to Substack about paid recommendations. I talked to a guy on their team off the record and they were like, yeah, this is a smart idea. We're not going to do it ourselves anytime in the future, but like we're trying to compete with YouTube and, all these other places. We can't be like investing time into something like this right now. That's like, like that's us showing how we're going to make a small amount of money to our investors is like a negative signal to them. Like we need to be showing them how we're going to not make money right now, but make an insane amount of money in the future.
Yeah, I guess I kind of have to follow the money. The incentive structure isn't there to do some of those things.
Which is a shame. Anyway, should we jump? Should we move on?
Yeah, I want to. This is something fun. I just want to get into. Well, we can just spend a minute on this, and then I'm curious if anyone else what they have to say. You can drop it down in the comments. But this is something that I think kind of mutual friend Dan Oshinsky said. He's kind of a legend of the newsletter space. You've probably been to an event with him. Everyone has. But he posted this on LinkedIn, and you and I were talking about it a little bit. But he basically asked, you get $100,000 to quit your job, begin traveling, and write a newsletter. So the $100,000 is basically to get you off the ground. You assume that you're gonna, be able to start making money off this newsletter. And he wants to know, where are you going and what newsletter are you writing? You first, Louis.
I have to go first. Oh damn. So I did not think about this as much as I should have done. I'll tell you what I'll do. What I'm thinking is, if I only have $100,000, and let's assume that this is like.
Okay,
I actually have
$100,000.
Like
only $100,000.
No, but let's assume that like I have that's my runway. Right? I don't have any of my own money. I don't have a job.
You're like, I'm going to Vegas and I'm blowing it in one weekend.
My wife isn't like supporting me financially while I'm doing this, right? Like it's $100,000.
Yeah,
yeah. So I think in that case, we're gonna have next week. We're gonna have after this drops, we're gonna have Nathan May sharing with us how he built his like very small invite only newsletter. Now he had the agency first, so it was like the revenue isn't like directly following in from the newsletter specifically, at least some of it isn't. But still, like the principles of that, I think there is a playbook to be built around like what Nathan and others have sort of like figured out for themselves how to do. And I think that's definitely something that I would look at. I don't know necessarily what the topic would be. Off the top of my head, I mean, it would have to be something marketing related or something like founder related. Like maybe it would be an invite only group of founders who have exited their business. I would have pretty easy access to those people. I could get them into it. It would be very high signal. It would be easy to do events and sponsorships. I think $100,000, let's say I scale back, that gives me a year of runway, including potentially some support and stuff, and like all the expenses and everything. I think within a year I could get up to where I would need to be off that. I mean, you only need to run one event a month,
Right.
with one decent sponsor to be at 15, 20K in revenue. Failing that, marketing, AI, you get high signal marketing leaders in, you bring in an expert, you teach them stuff. There's a invite only community again. I think you do really well there. So that would be what I would do. What would you do?
Yeah, I think we need to stop hanging out because it's fairly similar.
I stole yours.
Well, no, it's funny because I actually thought you were gonna do what everyone in the comments did. So in Dan's comments, it was a lot of like very romantic, like, oh, I would move to Tuscany and I would take care of like a local flock of birds or something, just like something ridiculous. I was like, why would you do that? You're gonna be out of money in like a year or something, and then you're gonna have to move back to your shitty life and live in a basement like me. As for me,
just a very quick aside. That's what I said I would do when we sold Sparkly. By the way, I was like, oh yeah, I afterwards like I think I'm gonna go and open a dog shelter in Portugal. Like there's loads of dogs that are homeless. It's a beautiful place. And I went to a dog shelter in Portugal recently, and I was like, this is the most soul destroying. Like they are saints, the people who work here, but like I cannot spend 15 minutes here. Like I do not have the stomach for that.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if this translates, but it's like a Sarah McLachlan commercial. There's like the sad crying puppies, but I would do something pretty similar to you. I would definitely lock in. I probably wouldn't travel, and actually, I would travel one place. So what I would do first, I would go to Reddit and LinkedIn, and I'm going to try to figure out which C-suite member. So it's like maybe it's CEO, probably not CEO, CMO, chief HR officer, chief information officer. I'm going to go to like Reddit and LinkedIn and try to figure out which of those people is trying to figure out AI the most. Like they're just having a hard time with it. They're like, we don't know how to implement this in our business. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find one of those people. And I'm going to say like, hey, I want to write this newsletter geared towards, let's call it chief HR officers. And I want to help them understand AI, kind of take them through this journey to, for us to be their guide, like their go-to newsletter that they're going to read so they can implement AI in their business. Because I think so many people are confused about it. Like everyone knows ChatGPT. Nobody knows what's next, right? And so you find one of these chief HR officers who is potentially pretty far along in his journey. Maybe it's someone who's like retired. Maybe it's someone who is just kind of like an expert on LinkedIn, but like they don't have a lot of reach. You go to them and say like, hey, I want to partner up. Maybe you have to take, 5,000 of that 100K and be like, hey, I'm going to pay you up front. And then we're going to share, some revenue when we build this newsletter. And the goal is you're going to tap his or her expertise for, building these things out. You're going to tap their network so that you can talk to kind of all these AI experts in this space. And then, I mean, maybe this is just me because I think I'm a better writer than them. I'm going to actually write the newsletter. So it's like a killer newsletter. I'll design it. I'll create it. I'll build it. But I'm going to use their expertise because I don't know anything about, AI in HR. And then here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly. And I just looked this up. Matt McGarry, recent podcast host, podcast guest. He lives in Greensboro.
You upgraded him to host?
Yeah.
This is news to me.
Yeah, I actually kicked you off. I'm going to fly to Greensboro, North Carolina, where he lives with a suitcase of the remaining money. Let's call it $95,000. And I'm going to say, go build me an audience of every chief HR officer in the world who doesn't understand AI yet. And I'm going to print money off of this newsletter.
Nice. I like the newsletter idea. It wasn't where I thought you were going to go, because what always has stood out to me as like something that you have like this unique capacity for and strength is you do one of the hardest things in the world, which is to write a daily, like you show up every day with your daily newsletter that you, at least for a long time, were writing like everything personally. And it was like,
which is like
you still do everything.
The dumbest thing on earth that I spend my time doing that. But yeah, I still do.
But very few people can do that, right? That's like the consistency of it and with the quality is like super, super hard. And so with you just having proven that you have that strength, like I get why like the grass is greener. You want to do something that's basically the opposite of that, like everyone does. But I would have thought that you would go for that idea we were talking about with Matt last week of like the AI like daily education for like rich parents space, like affluent parents, because that one, like, I think you have kids, you understand the audience, you have like a seed audience that you can bring into that. You can write daily and you can distill stuff really quickly and you can be passionate about it. Like, I thought you'd take that one on.
I think this just shows how beaten down I am by two things, right? Like a daily grind. I've been writing a newsletter for 8+ years, mostly by myself. And the other thing is like just how much the ad industry has, or the ad inventory, business model has changed over the past couple of years. It's just so much more brutal out there that I'm like, I would love to chase the dollars that are flowing into AI. And I mean, that does concern me a little bit because I think they're probably will pop a little. Like, there's not just going to be throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at every company that puts AI in their name, and those companies are not going to have as much money to spend. But hey, if I have a year or two to make it happen before this bubble pops, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, and I think you can, right? You see, like, you remember when there was this big like productivity bubble around like Notion and all those. I don't even remember the names of the other tools that were like Notion, but like everybody was like productivity apps. Here's like how I do it. Here are my hacks. Here's my YouTube. Here's my course that you can take in the group. And people were making an insane amount of money off that. That dried up pretty much like over the last, I would say, 2 years.
Yep.
But those people are still making even more money. They're now just teaching you how to build a business, basically, like theirs, right? And do things like that, or become a YouTuber or grow an audience or something. Like, they're doing just as well as they were before, if not better, but they managed to pivot that into something. I think that's the same with if you're doing the AI for kids thing. I think at some point it's like kind of like the digital for kids. Like, you don't need the digital anymore. You just have like the kids bit and something else that's interesting in you.
Yeah, as long as it's with kids. Are you a Notion guy?
I have a Notion account. I'm not a Notion guy. At Sparkloop, we use Basecamp for everything, which is like
we're
similar.
Leverage Letter and the Water Coolest are also Basecamp. I recently switched to, like, earlier this year, and I'm obsessed with it. I always found that Notion, there was just like too much. I almost compare it to like Android, where you can customize everything, whereas like I like the idea of Apple, where it's like I'm kind of in their ecosystem. There's only so many things I can do because I just get lost in Notion. I'm like, oh, I could do this, I could change this, I can make this dashboard, and my brain just kind of runs wild. But
yeah, Notion for me is like when our finance guy shows me like a spreadsheet he's working on, and I'm like, okay, you show me the spreadsheet and it works fine and I get it, but please don't ask me to like duplicate this and adapt it and change it or anything, because as soon as you do that, it's gonna go bad, right? And that for me is like Notion. Like, Jake Klaus, a friend of mine, has this really good like setup, and like he has these templates for Notion that he sells that is literally like how he runs his entire like creator business and community. And I tried one and I was like, yeah, this is great, but like this is too. I'm 34 now. I can't do this.
I know. I run stuff like businesses straight out of Apple Notes, right? Like that's me. It's like Apple Notes, and like if it's something that needs to go official, like we're going Google Docs, and then just like a link in Basecamp.
Yeah.
But okay, that was sorry for that rant, guys. Okay, I want to get into one last thing with you today, and I feel like you potentially didn't want to talk about this because you didn't want to be self-promotion, but I actually think this is potentially a bigger deal than what we heard from Patreon or Beehive. So over at Sparkloop, you guys announced something called welcome offers, which I saw the email about. I knew you were kind of working on, but I hadn't heard about it in a while. Like, that is super fucking exciting, man. First, congratulations. And second, can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, what's your internal pitch for this?
Yeah, thanks.
Or I guess external pitch.
We're still working on the pitch, to be honest. We've kind of like soft launched it just to a group of users. So I spent all day, like, I thought I was going to get maybe 50
did I just
people.
blow up your spot? Was it only two specific people?
It's okay. No.
I was like, I made the VIP list. I appreciate it.
No, we sent the email out to, I think, like, I don't know, maybe a couple of thousand users, 2,000 or 3,000 probably, and inviting them. And I thought we were going to get like 50, 60 responses to a new feature is pretty normally what we get. We got hundreds. So I was in my inbox all day yesterday and today. But I guess the idea for it is, we've talked about this before on the show. Right? Like I built this out to my own newsletter last year. I talked about, this is like my 5 minutes at the newsletter conference on the stage was literally about this. So it's nothing new if you've like heard me speak about newsletters before. But basically this idea of like right after someone subscribes to your newsletter is like a really, really interesting time. And it's unique to newsletters because you've subscribed to the newsletter on the promise, like the vague promise of like, this person is going to send me something good in the future. And so you end there and you have this, like, for the first time, you have momentum, you have incentive, you're moving forward, but you end on like a dead end of like, what's next, right?
Yeah, like, go read my archive they're like, oh, cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Or here is some work for you to do. Pull this email into a different folder, reply to me, click on this link,
Which I'm
all
convinced
that
that nobody in the history of the world has ever done.
Yes. No, they have not. And so one of the things that, like, I guess just to take it a little bit meta for a second, then we'll come back to this, is like, I was trying to figure out something people have asked us for from day one of Sparkloop has been to build an ad network, to go and compete with like Paved, LiveIntent, Swapstack before it was bought by Beehive. Now they have their own, Kit has their own, right? To go and do something like that. And we've always said no, because there's nothing that we can do like inherently better than them, I guess, right? Like why do we exist? What are we doing? Are we better salespeople? Probably not that much better. In definitely not better than all of them, right? Like there's nothing that we can do that will really help the newsletter space by building an ad network. But what's been really interesting is watching like the last 18 months, 2 years, as more brands have wanted to sponsor newsletters, more newsletters want to get sponsored. The quality of the average newsletter is much worse because there's a lot more of them. And the machine opens, the machine clicks have gone through the roof, right? The bot activity. So you just don't really know who's opening and clicking anymore. So attribution is impossible. And where I basically think, this is like my thesis and like our bet, is like, I think over the next 3 years, and we've already gone very far this way, but over the next 3 years, it will get even more this way, is you're basically going to see the CPM, CPC model essentially disappear. Brands are going to work with 2 different kinds of newsletter operators in 2 different kinds of ways. They're going to spend a bunch of money on essentially a partnership where they go, look, I don't really care how many people this reaches. I don't care how many people buy from this email. But what I want is I want Ali Abdaal to write that he likes my product and to talk about it from his voice. I want whoever it is, right? That newsletter operator, that creator, I want them to be the person promoting me. I want to be able to take that content, use it elsewhere. Their voice is valuable. I will pay them for that. Not paying on a performance basis, just paying for that partnership, right? I think there's going to be a bunch of money spent there that a lot of newsletters aren't going to be able to tap into, to be perfectly honest. Or not.
So you're saying like true kind of like brand awareness play, like the goal of that everybody has.
Yes, but about not just like flooding the zone, right? Not going to, there are these really big newsletters with like 5 million subscribers and no one knows who reads them. It's not about that kind of awareness. Like if you get inside of like, I don't know, Good Life magazine or something, it's about the relationship and being recommended by that particular person, right? And getting that content.
So I would say probably the best comp there is like what a Lenny is doing, right? Like he embeds himself he like reviews these products, he uses them, he talks about them in that, right? That sort of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And what the people are doing on YouTube, podcasts,
right.
TikTok, Instagram, right? That kind of thing, right? It doesn't have to be unique to newsletters.
Yep.
Attribution is just easier on newsletters. But then I think on the other side, you are still going to get a bunch of people who go, well, hang on, I don't know if this person is like, if their audience has any value or if their reputation has any value for me. I think their audience is probably a good fit. Now, I can't tell anything from their open rates or anything like their click-through rates. There's no point in me trying to do that like at scale, it just doesn't work. And you get people with misaligned incentives and all look at the Beehive ad network, for example, right? Like the amount of sort of fraud that has to happen in a network like that is insane and is very difficult to compete with. It's one of the reasons we're not doing it, because it would be, we wouldn't have any advantage either, right? We would suck just as bad as they do. But what we can do is move completely in the opposite direction and go to basically like 100% performance, right? So where you go, hey, I'm not going to pay you per impression. I'm not going to pay you per click as a brand, but I will pay you for each registered account. I will pay you for each purchase. I will pay you for each lead who books in a call with us or who downloads our app or downloads the podcast or whatever it is, right? Like cost per action, CPA, basically. And so that's where we think we can compete, basically, right? Is to go, okay, brands and publishers, they're going to have to figure out their own sort of like partnerships on the high end. The middle's going to disappear. No one's really doing the CPA stuff very well yet because newsletters have traditionally kind of resisted it, and brands haven't been able to like do that because no one's been offering it, basically.
Yep.
And so what we looked at was like, okay, well, how do we do that in a way that is better than an ad? Because the other problem with ads is like you scroll past them, right? Like an ad inside of a newsletter is annoying. Whereas an offer on a thank you page where you've just signed up to this newsletter, it feels like a bit of a risk. You don't know what's coming next. You don't know what like where you're supposed to go next. You're looking for the next thing. And all of a sudden you instantly get sort of like your decision was validated as a good one when you see, oh, I've just joined this newsletter. Here are these 5 exclusive offers that I've just unlocked from these partner brands. Pick the one you want. It's super high intent, right? You have the focus and you feel great like when you see those. And the conversion rates we're seeing on those are insanely high, like way higher than we expected, to be completely honest. Like they're working really, really well and subscribers love them. And so that's basically what we're
Is it working like, hey, better than getting people recommendations, like Sparkloop recommendations?
Yeah. I would say not in all cases. I would
expect it to not even be close in terms of like more people would sign up for newsletters via recommendations, right? Because you would think like you're in the mindset of like, hey, I'm signing up for a newsletter. I'm much more willing to sign up for another newsletter, not I'm signing up for a newsletter. Let me go buy Athletic Greens or, something, or, buy a product. So I'm shocked by that. That's super interesting data.
I mean, it depends on a lot of things, right? Like, and I think in general, in like a broad, like a consumer newsletter, it's a little bit easier to get people to choose the newsletter that they want because it's easier to sort of like tailor that to them based on what other newsletters they read.
Yeah.
Our targeting isn't quite there yet on the offers because it's so new. And it's difficult if you sign up for 1440, for example, it's kind of hard to come up with offers that feel really, really, really relevant in the way that if you sign up for Lenny's newsletter, like you can put 5 slam dunk offers in there that everyone is going to want, right? You're going to have like an 80% completion rate on those.
Yeah, like 1440, you don't even know whether it's like male, female, right? It's like you don't
exactly.
That makes it a lot more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can put stuff in there, but it's not going to be as high paying, and the conversion rates are going to be good, but they're not going to be as high. So there, you're more likely to do reasonably, like I would say about the same as with paid recommendations with newsletters. Yeah.
That's really cool. I think it's awesome because it's like you took a very specific problem or a very specific need that newsletter operators have, and you guys just like solved for it with a product. And I think that's awesome because it's something like people ask me all the time, like, can you build out, like the whole negative CAC thing? I think everyone talks about that and says like they want to get there. And like you guys were doing one part of that with Sparkloop with recommendations. Obviously Beehive does that. And now you're like closing the gap, right? Because before, if I was doing it with the water coolest, I would have to go out and work with Motley Fool or, Launch Potato or whoever it was to put an offer, behind it. But like for me, that from a technical perspective, like I have to go out and hire someone. I have to figure out how to do that. Like I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And so you guys just kind of being able to drop it with a widget, that's awesome. So I mean, I think that's the kind of stuff that like people should be getting excited about, not like some of the other things we talked about today.
I don't know. I mean, I think we're making stuff that people should be doing anyway, slightly easier, right? Like this is, I think, going to make it's going to make the newsletter space easier to jump into, but also slightly more competitive in a way. But the way that I think about this is like a big problem we have with newsletters at the moment is that we essentially are forced to go and pay social networks like to get access to their audiences, right? They're essentially holding like the attention of the audiences at ransom. And with paid recommendations, with welcome offers, like it gives you like instead of going to a gunfight with a stick, you're going to a gunfight with like a slightly less worse gun, right? Like you're still going to pay something for access to those subscribers, but you're not paying anywhere near as little as much as you had to before, right? The net is much less, and you can now compete much more easily with an e-commerce or a SaaS or whoever else is competing with you for those Facebook dollars.
Now Zuck like takes you out to dinner after he bends you over, basically. What else is working on? Like, what? Give us some inside baseball. What's next? What
What's
problem are you
next?
going to solve for me next?
I think we think there's a lot of legs on welcome offers, and we don't think I talk about them as being welcome offers. Internally, we talk about them as just offers. So there's no reason, like we already have, like you don't necessarily need to show that on your thank you page, right? Because something that people bring up to us a lot is, well, I want my subscribers to do my survey first, right? And I want completion rates to be high. So I don't want to show them the offers first because then they'll go and take the offer. So I want to show it after that. So they're also saying to me, hey, we know it's really important for people to click on the welcome email, but we don't have anything that's really enticing people to click the welcome email. So we're going, okay, great. Well, why don't we make it easy for you to put those offers into the welcome email? And then people can go and check them out from the welcome email. And then from there, it's kind of like a little step to be like, hey, I don't have an ad this week in my newsletter, or the only ads I'm getting are these sort of crappy CPM, CPC things that read like an ad. Like if I could instead give everyone a free resource from HubSpot or, free 2 months of Notion or something, like I would much rather be able to give them that for free than like give them some ad read. And those things, I think there's a lot of legs on that to like basically fill that missing like gap at the moment, which is like the really performance side of ads in newsletters done in a smart way.
One really technical, I guess not technical, from a copywriting perspective, are we able to create our own copy around these? Or like, so if I'm working with HubSpot, do they have kind of dedicated content already that I need to run with? Or is it something that I can kind of say, hey, here's this offer within certain parameters?
When it's on the site, so if it's in the widget, basically the way we do it is like you can set the context, you can write the copy of like around it, but then like the little offer box itself is set because it's 2 sentences, right? It's an image and 2 sentences, basically a title and 1 sentence. So that's set. When it's in the emails, you basically have like creative freedom, but you'll get sent this sort of squeeze page that just reiterates the offer again before they click through. So if you do something that is like completely off like you can add your spin on it of like why you love it and everything.
You can't be like, you win $1 million by clicking here. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, that's part of like one of the issues that I have with some of these, these like networks and kind of like agencies. And it's like, it's great to work with them for, I would guess, like ease of use and, getting ads inbound. But a lot of the issue, right, is like, the content just doesn't sound like me, right? And like I have a very unique voice, so it bothers me from that perspective. And there's like a lot of these type parameters, and then I think you get into the issue of being like, how much back and forth do I really want to spend time doing on ad ops if it's something where I'm getting $1 cost per click or something like that, right? It's like you have to kind of back out the math, like, is it worth my time? But something like this, it's like you can kind of create it once and run these offers, whenever, because I'm sure HubSpot would absolutely love to have as many people coming through. And if you kind of leave it in your newsletter, that's great for them. But yeah, no, that's super interesting. But I think it's cool, man. Congrats again. I think that's all we have today. Anything else from you in Letterland?
No, I think we did a good catch up. It's been a while since we've done a solo episode. Next week will be 3 of us again, so won't be a solo one. So yeah, it was good to catch up, and I'm sure in 2 weeks we'll have a chance to talk about the pre-hype surrounding Beehive's summer 2026 announcement, which I'm sure is going to forever change the internet and how we do business again, which is, I think, the tagline of this one.
Absolutely.
Gives us 6 months to get used to the new state of affairs that they've sort of brought into being before they shift the ground under our feet again. It'll be nice.
I love it. All right, we'll end there. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.